Hey, rookies, and welcome back to the Rookie Farmer Podcast. This is the home of the dreamers, the schemers, and the hustlers here in the world of small scale agriculture. If you are new here, my name is Alex Smith. I am going to be your host as well as the grower here at Crop Culture Farm in New Bern, Georgia. Now, we are doing a bit of a revisit of a topic. Earlier on in the season, we sat down with Nicholas and Jenny of Crystal Organic Farm and we discussed all things herbs and growing and selling medicinal herbs off the farm. And we are going to be tackling that subject again today from a slightly different angle. We sit down with Emily Erickson Mills of Moonrise Meadows Farm. Now, Emily is been farming for a couple of years on her own and about 4 years in total working on another farm, doing the whole working two farm jobs at the same time thing like I did. And she is specializing in growing medicinal herbs, but not necessarily to sell bulk to herbalists or to restaurants, but to primarily create value added products like hydrosols, beauty products, teas, and tinctures, things that then she can sell directly to the public to maximize her bottom line and maximize the time and the space that she has there on the farm. And we get into all of the details and if it's possible for vegetable farmers like myself to begin to implement some of those products into what we offer to our customers. But right off the bat, we tackle the difficult subject of raising children on the farm. Emily just had her baby 5 months ago, and baby Oren will make several appearances throughout the episode, highlighting the natural reality of having children on the farm and therefore having children on a podcast. And we get into all of that and so much more. So sit down and enjoy this episode with Emily Erickson Mills of Moonrise Meadow Farm. Emily, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us. And I guess just to sort of start off before we really get into a lot of the questions about the farm or whatever, how are you surviving? I think you said 5 months in now that you've had a baby and you're I think as you said in your email, a stay at farm mom. How
Yeah,
are you holding up?
good. It's been a journey. I didn't go into it completely naive. I knew it was not going to be easy, but I think that I had like some kind of expectation that like I'd be able to just, set the kid up in a stroller and he'd just nap quietly while I work for a few hours uninterrupted and then I'd nurse him and but that's not really how it goes.
Nope, not at all.
So,
No.
yeah, so it's been interesting to say the least. But overall, I'm loving being a mom, and he's smiling at me right now. I've got Oren with me.
I think
Babe,
Oren is the first baby to be featured on the Rookie Farmer podcast. So congratulations, Oren, on your
thanks.
your premiere.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is like case in point, right? Like everything I'm doing is like I'm a dyad with this baby right now. It's like we're a complete package, the two of us. And so everything I do kind of has to be modified to accommodate this little person.
Now, previously, before you had him, were you working an off-farm job or you just like kind of working full-time on your farm or like has it also changed sort of you being at home sort of full-time now?
Yeah, so previous to this, I worked at a different farm, I think similar to what you have done, where I was working full time at another organic nonprofit farm, actually, and it's like an organic orchard and vineyard. And then while I was pregnant, I scaled back to 32 hours a week at that other farm. And then this year, I am no longer at that other farm. I'm full in on the business, but I started the business kind of my own farm as a soft launch, I would say, 2 years ago, while in tandem with working at that other farm. So just doing it like the crazy way. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Not
yeah,
yeah, no real clean breaks. It's like you sort of like one fades into the other and one sort of slowly overtakes the other until one day you're
yeah.
like, "Am I doing this full time now? Okay, I guess so."
Yeah, but, like, at the other farm, I was really involved. I was the farmer's market lead, and so it kind of prevented me from expanding my own business in some ways as well, because obviously if I'm at farmer's market on Saturdays for the other farm, I can't be there for my farm. So
Mhm.
this, having the baby kind of coincided with a natural moment where it was like, all right, do I take the leap? Do I go all in on my business? So I kind of now it's like I still have another full-time job. It's, being a mom, but it's a little bit different. I'm at the farm. We live on the farm. So I can kind of come in and out and integrate it with my life a little bit more than commuting to another job.
Yeah, for sure. And I imagine anybody else who's listening, myself included, understands the challenges of running just the challenges of running your business from your home, even though it's not necessarily like it's work from home, but it's a little different because you're outside. There is that sort of separation. You're not
Right.
sitting in your living room in your PJs all day long,
Right.
or in your home office, but you're still home. And for most of us, we have kids at home, and I ran into the same issue where my wife, who's also an entrepreneur running her own business as well, sometimes it's divide and conquer. Like, hey, my mom can't watch the kids while we're both working, so you take one kid to the salon, I take one kid to the farm, or you have a long client, so I'm gonna watch the kids, but it's a big harvest day, and so there's all kinds of hoops that you have to jump through with like raising children while also kind of raising this ornery, difficult third child that is your business. And,
Absolutely. Yep.
and they're always sort of like vying for your attention. And like you said, you think ultimately that there's going to be this like wonderful thing where it's like we're outside and it's a beautiful day and the kids are just going to frolic through the meadow and they're going to play in the woods. And then it's like 5 minutes in, they're like, Dad, I want another snack. Dad,
Yeah.
can I watch something on your phone? And it's like, oh my gosh, like I thought this was going to be this like perfect idyllic life of parenting and farming at the same time, and you realize it's really not any different. It's more of the same, but at least, you can run inside for lunch. You
Right.
can take a break if you need to. And, there is the added benefit of having our kids outside, having them experiencing things, giving them that sense of boredom that will sort of spur on exploration, which obviously, he's a little young for exploring. But yeah, it's a big challenge as far
Yeah.
as raising children on a farm and operating said farm at the same time.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, he had a comment there.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a moment the other day that kind of, like, sums it up where, like, I had finally he was just so fussy, I finally got him down for a nap, but I was working in the high tunnel, so I did the transition, got him onto a towel that I'd laid out on the dirt, and he was still asleep, it was great. Then he kinda started moving around, and he's right at that age where he likes to grab things, so he just grabbed, like, a fistful of dirt and just threw it in his own face, and then just woke up crying.
Mm.
So, like, well, that happens, and then we had to come inside and wash the dirt out of his eye and stuff like that, but, you think that you finally have it all together, like, "Yes, the kid's napping, I did it," and then nope. Today he was great. He was sleeping in the shade for a couple hours, and I got a whole bunch of stuff planted. So, it's like take it day by day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think treating kids on the farm more as like a feature as opposed to a bug is really important. And I think it has a lot to do with just the mindset of things because like I said a second ago, you think you're like, all right, they're just gonna kind of go do their thing and maybe they do take a nap for a few hours and I can get a bunch of stuff done. But it really sort of changes the pace in which you do things and realize like you're being a parent, you're being a dad, you're being a mom while you're also doing this business. And so that also means that you can take a different pace. You can sort of take a different approach to the way that you're running your business where sometimes you're so focused on just the efficiency, like we got to get it done. We got to knock this out. We got to knock this out. And having a kid there or multiple children sort of in tow, it sort of, yeah, it changes the pace. It changes the speed in which you can do things. And I think in a lot of ways, it makes you stop and focus on really what you're doing, not just in the sense of like, all right, so the way that I pick this, these calendula flowers, like, but it's like, but you think about like, all right, so what is this? And it's a learning opportunity, but also just being able to take your children along with you, whether it's a farmer's market or whatever. I think seeing our children there, not as a bug or as a thing that is a hurdle that we have to jump over, but sort of see them as like a featured part of the business obviously they're a featured part of our
Yeah.
family, sort
Yeah.
of the main part of that. But I think changing our mindsets and the way that we think about having children on the farm, especially young children on the farm who aren't
Right.
really able to help yet, I think is a big key to success, to the longevity of not wanting to either like cuss your kids out because they like ran through a bed of arugula, or also just totally neglect the farm because you've got the kids that day. And it's such a fine dance.
Yeah, I mean, there's moments that he also reminds me to slow down and appreciate what I'm doing, because I think when you're in the business, and especially when before, I was working another job, so I come back home to my farm, it's late afternoon, it's hot, I've already been in the sun all day, and now I need
Mhm.
to put in a few hours of work on my farm, and it has to get done, and the weeds are growing, and it's just like, "Oh my god." Ugh, so stressful, right? But you sometimes forget why you're doing it and that it's beautiful and you're in nature and there's things growing all around you. And having the baby forces me, especially when he needs a bunch of feeding breaks or things like that, to stop and like listen to the birds singing. Sometimes you forget that the birds are singing when you're out in the field.
Yeah.
And pick up a dandelion and say like, look, Oren, this is a yellow dandelion, and just take a moment to be a little bit more mindful. I think it's a lesson that we could all benefit from. Not recommending that everybody farm with a baby. It's not exactly ideal for productivity, but yeah, trying to like reframe it a little bit.
Definitely. Well, we could probably talk about babies and kids on the farm. I mean, we could do a whole podcast episode just on that.
Yeah.
Shoot, we could probably do a whole podcast itself just focused on parenting and farming.
Yeah.
But we've talked around your farm, but sort of give us the background and the introduction to what and who your farm is, so to speak.
Yeah, so my farm is Moonrise Meadows Farm, and I am located in Northwest Washington State on the Canadian border. Literally, our property line is the US-Canada border. It's kind of
Wow.
we share a fence line with our Canadian neighbors who have horses on the other side. It's a very unique setting. As I was saying before we started recording, we're like zone 7-ish, I would say. Being up in the foothills of the North Cascade, it's a little bit cooler than Bellingham, which is the closest main town. And I grow predominantly medicinal herbs. This year, I've ventured a little bit into veg as well. And we have a small fruit tree orchard establishing. It's not productive yet. Growing on about half an acre. Not all of it is fully intensely in production, but a good portion of it. Each year we've expanded kind of one silage tarp at a time.
Yeah.
I grow herbs. I do some bulk sales, but most of my business is in value added products. So that looks like body products, hydrosols, which are the distilled aromatic components of the plant. Kind of like think of rose water is a hydrosol. So I do distillations of various plants like lavender and clary sage and mugwort. And then I make herbal tea blends as well. It's a mixed bag of different things, and the past 2 years in the business has been kind of like throwing things at the wall to see what'll stick. I started out doing just like a couple holiday shows, more like craft-oriented, maker markets and things like that my first season, and then expanded, did some bigger markets, bigger craft shows in Renegade in Seattle and Urban Craft Uprising, really trying to like get the word out about my products and get some brand awareness there. And then this year I will actually be at the Bellingham Farmers Market. So I've got farmers market, craft shows, online sales, and then I sell a little bit to restaurants as well, especially it's been mostly desserts actually with the lavender. We've got a great ice cream shop called Mallard Ice Cream, and they're very adventurous with their flavors. So they've been buying some herbs from me and trying out different fun flavors. So that's really exciting. And then a friend of ours has a farm stand at her farm, and I'll be selling some stuff through the farm stand as well. Lots of different sales channels.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's really cool. You sort of like hit all of the things that I wanted to talk about. So now that you've like introed them all, then we can sort of like take each one and break it all down and go into there. So that's cool. But first and foremost, obviously, you're not the first person to start a farm selling medicinal herbs and doing that sort of thing. And if you've been, I'd say, a longtime listener, obviously not that long. It's our first year doing the show. But if you can remember earlier on in the season, we had an episode with Nicholas and Jenny of Crystal Organic Farm, and talking to them about the pivot and the shift towards medicinal herbs. But Emily, I mean, obviously you, Crystal, I'm doing some of that sort of stuff. I know other farms are in the area as well. And not even just with the medicinal side, but we'll kind of lump some flowers and just herbs in general into that sort of thing. But what do you think is sort of the impetus behind this sort of shift toward herbal things, edible flowers, all the things that I would sort of lump into that category?
I think that it's a niche that there is still room to expand in. There's at the farmer's market, everybody's got tomatoes. There's, a whole bunch of different people selling lettuce. It's not a problem to have multiple farms selling multiple of the same types of vegetables, but very rarely do you see people selling herbs. Sometimes some farmers are dabbling in herbs, which is really cool, mostly like the culinary herbs. But to have some locally grown herbal teas, some of the like specialty body products and facial oils and serums and salves and all that stuff to actually be farmer grown and not just handmade. It's kind of like the next step, right? Like
Mhm.
we're not using plants that are imported from overseas. It's all part of the growing movement for eating local. I think we're realizing like, oh, it goes beyond just your lettuce as well. Like what's in your tea bag? Where did that come from? And can we get local with that? So it was a niche that I saw open to explore. There weren't a ton of people doing it. And, being kind of a plant nerd and into I've been into herbalism for a while, and it just kind of seemed like a natural thing. If I was going to start something, at first it was just like, oh, a small thing on the side, and then it's kind of turned into my whole thing. That's kind of how I fell into herbs, I guess.
Yeah, I think that there is like I said, a sort of a tide turning, not to where everybody's going to do it, but I'm seeing more and more. I was like one of the first farms at our market to start selling edible flowers, and there was another farm there who sells edible flowers, but they mostly sell to restaurants. And as far as I can tell, it wasn't really until I sort of stuck my neck out there and tried moving them, mostly because the sales outlet that I initially had for them I was no longer working with. And so I'm like, I've got to move all of these flowers some way. And so like, let's just try at the market and just see. And sure enough, they were a hit. And now, one of the other farms is doing it. And like you said, I'm sort of, I wouldn't say I have the corner on culinary herbs, but I definitely have like the most variety, wherever, maybe there's three or four of us that have basil. I'm the only one with rosemary. I'm the only one that's really bringing any sort of mint or sweet marjoram, oregano, lemon balm, anise hyssop, all the different things that I'm growing, just sort of bringing a little bit of everything. And it's been less about like, oh man, I'm moving, 4 pounds of lemon balm a week at the farmer's market, but it's like I sold like 3 bunches for
Mhm.
like $3 a piece, but I'm sort of conditioning our customers to begin to expect to see these herbs that one, obviously you can tell them like, yeah, like you can steep it into a tea or, just sort of infuse it into water. But then you also have this opportunity to begin to educate them. And for some of them, maybe for the first time, really let them dip their toe into the water of herbalism. And so I'm hoping that we'll begin to see more of that sort of in this space because yeah, I mean, I think like we talked about offline, as people are becoming very conscious of their health, and now that the internet has made it very accessible to be able to learn a lot of this stuff, you don't even have to know what a plant is. You can take a picture of a leaf and it'll say, all right, well, this is yarrow. And then, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps away, and then boom, you already know exactly how you can process it and you can use it and all of this sort of stuff. So I think we're at the early stages of a really big movement toward kind of seeing local herbalism again and seeing it kind of right there front and center with vegetables and kind of like pasture raised small scale livestock production, which is a big reason why I wanted to talk with you because I think as there's folks who are listening who are, sort of maybe in the early stages of like, what do I want to do? What kind of a farm do I want to have? Do I want to do pasture raised egg layers? Do I want to do conventional market gardening vegetables? Do I want to do this or that, whatever? Like this isn't a third or fourth option that is extremely viable, and you can fill a niche that is probably not being filled in your local area, or it's not being filled to capacity that it could be.
Right. I love what you're doing with the edible flowers. That's such a cool idea. That's an exciting way. I think, herbs and edible flowers, they really add that extra. It's like you've got your lettuce, your squash, your vegetables, but then you add in the flowers and now, wow, your booth looks amazing. You've got that extra, it's like a little bit of magic.
Mhm.
It draws people in. And it's a great way to kind of get a name for yourself, with chefs too. I think that's a pretty cool thing. Like, "Oh, this guy does flowers," like, what can we do with that? I think herbs kind of invite more exploration. Yeah.
Mhm. And I think we initially sort of went down this road with more of your conventional edible flowers,
Mhm,
things like, violas, pansies,
mhm.
nasturtium, stuff like that. And now we've sort of ended up in this place where, yes, we're growing some of that. And that was sort of what got our foot in the door, like I said, with chefs or with, bartenders. And now we've moved into doing more of the actual medicinal herbs as culinary herbs in a sense.
Mhm.
So, like I sold, yeah, I think like 40 blossoms of calendula to a restaurant this week. And then I have, and within the last week, I've sold like 80 anise hyssop flowers and some other things. So now we're moving into not just the kind of conventional culinary flowers that people or chefs are used to working with, but now we're moving into more of the medicinal ones. And then you get an opportunity to educate them, and then they can educate their customers. And the cool thing is it's sometimes it's not like, oh, I have a particular use that I want to do this for. Like I asked a chef this week, like, well, what are you going to do with the calendula? He was like, I'm not really sure yet, but if I don't find a good use for it, like we'll just infuse it into vinegar and it'll be super
Mhm.
rad. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's really cool too to be able to work with people who like are just excited about some diversity and excited about new product that sort of is outside of just your standard like Salanova lettuce, baby root veg and so on and so forth. They can get these like super rad looking anise hyssop flowers, which if you guys don't know what they look like, you can go to my Instagram page and scroll back however far and you'll see these like Dr. Seuss looking purple flowers that just like hit you in the face with the most fragrant sort of anise licorice flavor, and really wonderful, like added to a salad or whatever. I'm not,
Yeah.
it
I
can be
do a
really
tea
easy for
blend
me
with
to,
them. That's really nice.
yeah, it can be really easy for me to go into like sales mode, like I'm at the farmer's market with people. I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, there's a lot of really wonderful things that can be done with this. And a lot of times I feel like the culinary use for things get your foot in the door and then you have an opportunity to
Mhm.
do that. But let me ask you this, with all of your market streams, one thing that does differentiate you, like you talked about earlier,
Mhm.
from say a Crystal Organic or maybe other farms that are focusing on medicinal herbs, is you're doing a lot of value adding.
Yeah.
Is there a
Yeah.
particular ethos behind that, or is it more of just like you wanna try to capture as much of the profit as possible, or
Yeah, so there was intentionality behind that. I'm forgetting now if I said this before we hit record or while we were recording, how I started working full time for another job, another farm.
yeah,
So yeah, so I was, full time at another organic farm, working in the orchard, and I was thinking like, okay, I want to start something, but I don't have the capacity to, while I'm full time at this other job, do like a full time, start a vineyard or something,
yeah,
start another orchard. And I didn't want to do the same thing that I was doing all day at my other job. I wanted to do something a little different. I was growing veg for myself and my husband, just small garden. But when you do value added herbal products, you don't need a ton of herbs to make a lot of products. So, you can make a tincture that's an infusion of herbs into alcohol. You can take by the dropper and get like a really concentrated dose. And, it's maybe like one mason jar full of herbs, fresh herbs, and you get like 20 bottles. So it's a way, and then you charge a little bit more for that. So yeah, adding value allowed me to not have to invest in as much space to grow products and be able to turn it into more dollar value, more bang for my buck. It also allows a lot of room for creativity, when you're looking at like, okay, what herbs would I make into a facial serum, and let's design the label and the logo and present it as this kind of elevated, like simple everyday luxury product, right? It's a whole different game than when you're just saying like, here's the calendula, here's what you can do with it. It's
Mhm.
like, here's the calendula. I made it into this like beautiful, artful product that you get to turn into your everyday ritual, right? Like from the farm to you, right?
Yeah.
And people love that.
Let me ask you this. Have you allowed the farm to dictate what you sell, or have you sort of decided on, like you said, a facial serum, and you determine what products you want to sell, and then sort of determine what plants you need to grow in order to satisfy the need for that particular product?
I think the first 2 seasons when it was very experimental, I was doing a lot of like, "Oh, I'd love to try growing this and see if that works," and it wasn't as intentional. It was kinda like, "Okay, I have a lot of this. What am I gonna do with it now?"
Mhm.
Whereas this season, knowing that I was going full-time into my business, I knew that I would need to be a little bit more intentional about it. So I finally, did very thorough budgeting where I actually broke down like, what is my profit margin on every single product? I did a lot of spreadsheets, thorough analysis, and then budgeting like, okay, if I want to sell, X many bags of tea, how many pounds of dried herbs is that? And then how many pounds of fresh herbs is that? And then how many bed feet of herbs is that? So a lot of
Gotcha.
mathematical equations there.
Yeah, no, I think that's one thing that we don't often do in sort of the vegetable space is that we're not really working backward from thing like, all right, I want to sell this many bags of salad mix every single week. I mean, maybe we're doing it with salad mix, but it's not really that you have like a product in mind and then you're sort of reverse engineering it. I think it's
Yeah,
more of like, this is the amount of space that we have. I want to do this many successions of carrots and so on and so forth. And so I think it's somewhat similar, but there's definitely a uniqueness to when you're value adding something, you having to think about the full process, not just of like harvest and sell and then work backwards to, sort of bed space and planting and so on and so forth. But you have to think about the time to process it. Do you have enough space to process everything? I know that's
right.
been being at the other farm. It's like, hey, pick as much calendula flower as you can. And then you like start picking and like, okay, that's enough. We don't have enough room in the dryers. Like this is, and so
Mhm.
you have unique constraints in that aspect of it that you don't have when it's just like picking it fresh, throwing it in the cooler, and then we'll just move it at the market the next
Yeah,
day. And so, but yeah, I think it's really, really wonderful that you can sort of reverse engineer some stuff, and it's like, what do I need for said product? And it's like, can I grow that effectively? Can I grow it profitably? And then if you can, then it's like, boom, we have ourselves a new product.
right. Yeah, it's definitely, not the most simple, way to do farming or making herbal products. It's it's like making it, like, the most complex I can, and a lot of customers don't even like, there are customers that are like, "Oh, cool, like, an herbal tea, that's great. I'll take one," and they don't even know that it came from a farm
Yeah.
or really care, but then you do get the people that, really appreciate the story, appreciate and understand the value of buying from a local farmer instead of somebody who is blending things together that they purchased from large wholesaler,
Mhm.
all grown overseas, which I mean, there are plenty of people that create beautiful products that way. I'm not knocking their business models. I'm just saying this is different. Yeah, that's why this year I'm now certified naturally grown. So
Fantastic.
yeah, I know
Welcome to
you
the
did that as
family.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to have, like, a certification that I could show customers that rather than me having to say over and over, like, I grow everything on my farm. Like, whenever they walk by my booth, I'm like a little animatronic that comes to light. I'm
Yeah.
like, I grow everything on my farm. Yes. It gets old, right? So have the certification there, certified naturally grown. They can see like, oh, okay. At least they know it's natural. And then that kind of invites a little bit more of the conversation about why it is. So that's my hope at least.
Yeah, on a quick CNG tangent, just because it's like the more people I talk to, the more it's like, man, like we're freaking everywhere. Is there a pretty good embrace and adoption of the CNG certification? That's a little redundant to say,
Mhm.
but of that certification up in sort of the Pacific Northwest? Because I know down here, sort of in the Southeast, it's just taken off, and it's like everybody and
Yeah.
their brother are CNG now.
I can't speak for the entire region, but for Whatcom County, Whatcom and Skagit counties up here, there are a few farms that are certified, a few people that I was already kind of friends with, and they were in my social circles. And I knew them from working the farmers market with the other farm that I worked at. So I was already aware of certified naturally grown. Now that's me, a farmer, being aware of it. I would say I'm curious to see how the customers respond to it. We haven't started markets this year for our farm yet. Most of our products, since they are value added, I have more availability of products later in the season. So I start kind of late summer, early fall in earnest for my sales season this year. So yeah, so I'm really curious to see how that goes at the farmers market, but I know that there are definitely customers out there that will only buy organic or only
Mhm,
buy it if it's, certified something. So especially in the Bellingham area. There's a lot of co-op goers, there's a lot
mhm.
of it tends to be a market of people who do kind of value local and organic style. So yeah, it's growing. It's a small group of people, but I think the movement is growing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I like to
Yeah.
hear. Everyone at our farmers market, minus one farm, is all CNG.
Mhm.
And that one farm who's not CNG is certified organic. We have to be for our market, but it's been a really cool community to be a part of, and so it's always exciting to meet new people. And I always ask them like, do I say welcome to the community? I want to say like welcome to the family. I don't know if it's actually a family, but I don't really, probably not. They're like, it makes it sound a little weirder than it needs to be. But that's
Sorry,
always
that was
my
baby just burped there.
yeah, first burp on the podcast.
Yeah.
Uh, but to sort of shift gears for a second, from your experience, I think a lot of people who are listening, myself included, probably are not going to go all in on medicinal herbs. Like I'm not going to pivot and I'm not going to do that. But I've got enough space. I don't know if I have enough time, but I have a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of extra space that I can devote and have devoted to growing some of this stuff,
Mm,
partially for pollinator habitat support as
yeah.
well as just sort of additional things, if it's a perennial native plant that produces super awesome flowers and really amazing leaves and roots and stuff, then it's like, yeah, like let's grow it, and it's way less work than planting a bed of arugula every other week. But how feasible do you think it really is from start to finish of like growing the herbs, harvesting, processing, value adding into products and then selling direct to customers? How
Yeah.
realistic do you think it is to actually be able to add this aspect of small scale agriculture to an existing, we'll just stick with me, small
Mhm.
scale organic vegetable operation? Like how
Yeah.
realistic do you think this actually is?
It's like a whole other business, to be honest. I
Gotcha.
mean, I would say, like, growing the plants is a business. Processing them is a business, like, you're kind of, like, lumping a few different businesses together, so it's not necessarily like, "Wow, this is just such an easy way to make some fast cash," you know? It's
Yeah.
really, a bit of a passion project, I would say. Also, I think that in order to really make your products stand out, I do believe that having a good logo and label art, making your products look really professional, because at least in this part of the world, it's starting to be a bit more of a crowded market with herbal products. Like I said, most people aren't growing the herbs themselves, but some are. And I think that there's a little bit of like, you've got to sell the story of your products. It's not something that somebody needs, it's something that they want. Like they might need to eat. So they're going to need to buy some turnips or something, like a facial serum. It's less of a, I need this, and more of like, ooh, that would enhance my life. So people are going to want something that's really beautiful, that makes them feel like it's a little treat, a gift. Do great for holiday markets because it's really giftable. Stocking stuffers, Mother's Day, that kind of thing. Figuring out who your audience is, it's a little bit different than you just show up to the farmer's market. You've got your vegetables beautifully arranged. Or like when I used to sell fruit at the farmer's market at the other farm, it's like a peach sells itself. We were
Yeah.
making excellent sales at farmers markets because we were the only ones in our region selling peaches, and who doesn't love a peach, right? Like it's just
You're talking to a Georgia boy. Yeah, we
yeah.
love our peaches.
Right. Well, they're harder to grow up here in Northwest
Oh,
Washington, so
yeah.
they're especially valued. And so, you don't have to explain how to use a peach to somebody. Um, and with herbs, it's a little different. You have to work a little bit harder to sell them. So that's why I say it's a bit of a labor of love if it's something that you're passionate about and that you are really inspired, and the artistry of it, the cultural significance that it might hold. That's more, I would say, why to go into an herbal products based business or to add it on to a farm business. Or if you have a farm business that's chugging along, you've got some employees, you have space and capacity. But I would caution, I want to be really honest to people, and I don't want them to think that I'm just like making a killing doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I have a husband who has an off-farm job. He's a handyman. And to be honest, like there's a lot of upfront investment when you're doing processing. Not only do you have to figure out all the licensing to do everything properly and pay for potentially graphic design for your labels and the very least get them printed. And then you have to do a lot of market research, and then there's specialized things like you need a drying room. That's different than, your cooler. It's another piece of infrastructure. So we've spent a lot in the first 2 years getting the farm up and running. There's just been a lot of upfront costs. We started out kind of from a blank slate. When we bought the land, it was technically raw land. And so truly have had to build everything from the ground up. So profitable, we're working on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Hopefully the hope is that like you put in all the work, you get all your infrastructure, you start selling, and then you've laid the groundwork, and then if you can stick with it for a couple of years, that's the key, right? Then
yeah,
you start reaping the rewards. Like, I don't have to make the labels again. I already made them. I don't have to take the photos again of the
yeah,
products. I already paid the photographer once. So it's a lot of upfront costs, but now that's also why I'm pushing to continue this even though I have the baby. It's like I've invested so much already, and now I finally get to start reaping the rewards of my investments. So I can't stop now.
yeah, definitely. And I think to tie a bow on this conversation about kind of adding on a kind of an herbal medicinal herb or just sort of culinary herb side of your business, I think starting with dried herbs is probably the
Mhm.
easiest way to go. Last week we sold our first, funny enough, it kind of ended up being like the whole harvest of our dried chamomile.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure what. I was like, all right, well, we're growing it. I've got it. And actually everything that was growing this year has just been self-seeded from last year. And, and yeah, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have even more next year. It's going to be insane. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to start treating it like a weed if it gets much worse, which I imagine it will be. But, and it was like, all right, well, I guess we'll harvest it and we'll dry it and we'll save it for, eventually once we get enough like spearmint in and some of these other things, and we'll make some sort of a tea blend or just sell
Yep.
some dried herbs, maybe in the winter season or whatever. And then in an offhand conversation, mentioned something to a chef, and he's like, dude, that'd be awesome. I was looking at some recipe for like a chamomile tea marinated pork
Mhm.
shoulder. And I was like, okay. And so I like put it on the availability list for him next week. I was like, yeah, I'll charge. And I like, it's like I did a little bit of looking and I was like, I think like $2 an ounce, seems like a good whatever. And I didn't really put a limit. I just, I was like, he might buy a little bit. And
Yeah.
he was like, I need 8 ounces of it. And I was like, oh my God.
Uh-huh.
And it ended up being every bit of what I had, you know,
Chamomile's very lightweight,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
especially when dried.
I probably should have done a more per ounce on that, but it was just the reality of it. It's that it was like, oh no, like there's a market for this. Like
Yeah.
it may not be a week in and week out like carrots or Hakurei turnips or arugula will be, but it's one of those things that I'm growing more from like the perennial patches of different herbs that are growing on the farm. I have more than I'm growing than I can sell, and I
Mhm.
have a dehydrator.
Yep.
And so why not just start drying everything that's left over? And obviously, we're drying this to preserve it, so then we can have it for use in the future. And so
Yep.
I would say that essentially, if you wanted to add on this part to your business, and I'm speaking from someone who's literally right in the thick of it as I'm trying to figure it out, is it's like starting with dried herbs and trying to sell it to your existing outlets, whether it's chefs or do it to, maybe do like dried flowers to your market customers in the wintertime that they can use and make tea out of it, or whatever it may be, or present it in a way that doesn't really require much added processing, and you can sort of trick your customers into doing the processing themselves. One thing I did last year, and I might do it this year, we'll see, is we sold medicinal herb bouquets. And
Oh,
so
wow.
we had a random mix. I don't even remember what all was in it, but there was some like wild bergamot, like some bee balm. There was yarrow. We had the anise hyssop. We had some spearmint. We had tulsi. We had all these different herbs. They all had flowers and they all have
Mhm.
lots of different textures and colors. And so we started making these like really nice, like $15 flower bouquets, and they smelled incredible, way better than any floral arrangement would ever smell. And we sold a ton of them last year, and it was
Great
herbs that it's like
idea.
I couldn't move them. The chefs had kind of stopped needing the anise hyssop and didn't want any more of the bee balm, and it's like, and if you don't sell it, like, those flowers aren't gonna just stay there forever. They're eventually gonna drop off and then seed, and then, and then you're that's a whole 'nother can of worms. And you tell your customer, like, "This is a beautiful bouquet. It smells really nice. It's much more, like, rustic looking than, these big, huge single stem flowers that you're gonna get from a flower farm or from a florist." And the beautiful thing is then you can take it, and once it's sort of served its purpose, like every bouquet of flowers does, instead of just throwing it away, take it, hang it upside down in a cool, dry place and dry it out, and then you have this, like, wonderful tea blend, which I
Yeah.
hope that the mix is a wonderful tea blend. Bee balm might be a little intense.
Bee balm's a little spicy, but yeah.
Yeah, but we tried to limit
But
how much we did in there for that very
but it's
reason,
beautiful. Yeah.
but, so that was a way that we could add and, like, sort of dip our toe into the medicinal herb world, but
Yeah.
essentially treat it like a fresh product, and it just requires a little bit of extra, education with your customers, and everyone loved them, and so, yeah, we'll probably do them again this year, because
Yeah, it's like a true edible arrangement, right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you'd always get the one crazy person be like, "Oh," and they'd, like, pluck a leaf off the tulsi and eat it, and like, "This is great." I'm like, "If you say so, man." Like,
Yeah.
um
Yeah. I've seen, you could do like, if you sell garlic braids, a
mhm.
lot of people will weave, dried flowers into them, but you could weave in edible herbs as well, like, do your seasonings and then add a little oregano, flowering, a little bit of rosemary into
Mhm.
your garlic braid. That could be something fun.
You
There's a
don't
lot
know
of ways.
Yeah, you don't know this because the episode hasn't aired yet, but we sat down with the folks over at Hillside Harvest, our garlic farm, and they do garlic braids with dried flowers in it.
Oh, there you go.
So
Yeah.
so by the time this airs, you guys will have already heard that, and you'll be like, Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
So one last thing I wanted to tackle before I let you go is something interesting that you had told me in an email the other day was that you were doing a collaborative CSA and now you are not. And one, I would love to just kind of get an understanding of what that collaborative CSA was looking like. And then
Mhm.
two, if you can just sort of kind of like get real and honest with us and sort of explain like why it didn't work or why it's on pause. And because I think it's a unique business model that people might be able to take and run with, but being able to have some realistic, real life examples of what the challenges may be, I think is really insightful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's a beautiful idea, and in theory, it would distribute the labor of the CSA between our case, it was gonna be 3 different farms, where we would have 2 of the farmers were gonna be growing more the bulk of the vegetables. One of the farmers hosts the pickup site because she's got the farm stand and a cooler already all set up, so it'd be great for customers to arrive there, and she's right off the main road. And then because I have the baby and I've got my hands full, I was gonna be contributing crops that are a little bit more of a one and done, not doing succession plantings, like some winter squash, I would do some peas, some hot and sweet peppers that I'm just planting once and contributing, and then, of course, the value added products as well.
Yeah.
And then I would be doing more of the administrative tasks, the email newsletters, all that good stuff. So, on paper, that sounds amazing. In practice, I think what happened this season is one of the farmers, the one who would be hosting the site, her partner has had some health issues. And I'm not going to delve into all of that, but I think that we kind of all, looked around at the situation. We had just started promoting it, so we didn't have that many signups yet. And with one of the farmers kind of already struggling and the season hasn't started yet, and me kind of realizing what having a baby actually entails, I think we all kind of were like, "You know what? Like, let's be real for a second. Is this going to actually be worth the time and effort, like, for the few $1,000s that we're gonna get? Because when you split a CSA, you also split the proceeds, so it's not
Yeah.
quite as lucrative, right? So we decided ultimately that we are not going to do it this year. It doesn't mean that we're never going to do it. I think that it's a really cool model. And there's still collaboration. Like one of the farmers still has her farm stand this year, and she basically has opened that up to other farmers in our region to be able to use her cooler space and sell the products there. Another of the farmers that was part of that collective is actually growing some garlic and peppers on a plot on my farm. I had a little bit of extra space in the pasture, and now that we've got a better irrigation system set up, I was able to offer that to another farmer. So, like we're still collaborating. It's still a network of farmers, but you know what? Like sometimes you have a grand vision and it doesn't work out, and it's better to cut your losses before you're like deep in it halfway through the season and realizing like, oh my gosh, this was a mistake. you know?
Yeah, definitely. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because it's a real life example of what happens when we are collaborating with other people. It's
Mhm.
that, we collaborate so that we don't have to carry the whole load. Sometimes something happens where one person falls off, and even though they're not the only ones carrying the load then has to get picked up by the other collaborators,
Right.
is just too much. And so good on you guys for knowing when to stop.
Mhm.
Especially
Yeah.
kind of before you really got into the meat of it, because
Yeah.
I think there can be a tendency sometimes. It's like, all right, well, we said we're going to do it, and we're just gonna,
Mhm.
well, just bite the bullet and
Yeah.
make it happen.
Oh, and like luckily, we all have other sales outlets. It's not like,
Yeah.
you know, sure, I have a lot more sweet onions than I would normally have this time of year, right? But I'll find a way to get
Yeah,
rid of
you're
them.
gonna be at the
Um,
farmer's market. Be like, yeah,
yeah,
let me
I'll be
pick
at
up
farmer's market. So,
let me do a facial serum and some onions.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
It's like,
for farmers market people, that is the least weird thing that they could possibly
yeah,
do, so that's fine.
yeah. So not too worried about that. And then for the people who had already signed up, had to reach out and be like, thank you so much for electing to support us with your dollars.
Mhm.
And then also like, hey, we still have this farm stand that's going to be open. You are going to be coming here anyway to pick up a box, offering them credit at the farm stand if
There you
they
go.
like.
Yep.
Or, they can get a refund if they'd like that instead. But at least trying to like retain that.
How did that go? How did that work? Did you get some people
You know,
that
I we this, was pretty recent. I need to check in with, the other farmer. She was the one who reached out about that. So, I am curious to see did they all stay on or not? I'm not sure on that part.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I was like, "Oh, man, that'd be a good opportunity, like, since you've already spent your money,
Yeah.
let's sort of take this and still ensure that you can get the products that you were wanting to get and be able to
Mhm.
support the businesses you were supporting."
Yep.
So yeah, I'd be really curious
Yeah.
about that. So, as we sort of wrap things up, a couple of questions I wanna ask you is, first and foremost, what are your plans for the future? And specifically, I guess let's get really very near future. What
Mhm.
are your hopes and plans for doing your farmers market this year?
Yeah, so this upcoming season, I'll be starting like I said, it's a little bit unusual where my farmer's market season kinda starts where a lot of people are winding down because by the time the herbs are all dry and
Mhm.
blended or infused into various things, we're looking at late summer, early fall for the majority of my products being available. So, I'll be starting kind of at the tail end of the normal farmer's market season and then carrying on through winter because a lot of this stuff sells really well over the winter. My local farmer's market, it scales back during the winter, but it still continues on a modified schedule. But yeah, it's going to be interesting with the baby. I'm going to try to figure out if we can have, maybe I go early on my own, set everything up, start selling, and then my husband meets me with the baby and we kind of do a tag team where, I step away from the booth and nurse him for a little while and then my husband does some sales and try to
Yeah.
make it work. So we'll see. Do a little bit of bottle. Yeah, I'm excited about having a more consistent booth space at the farmers market. Up until this point, I've done kind of pop-up markets, holiday markets. They've all been kind of one-off situations. So I'm really excited to start having a more hopefully regular client base or customer base. And I know the farmers market well already from working there for the other farm. Um,
Perfect. So you
yeah,
already sort of have built relationships with people. They know you, they trust you,
exactly.
and you kind of
Yeah,
know the
and the other
vibe.
farmers too.
Yeah, and the other
Honestly, it's
farmers.
like a good number of my friends I feel like I've made, from working these farmers markets, and I was gonna miss them this year, to be honest. But so it's gonna be great to see everybody and yeah, I already know the flow, so it's no surprise, like, where to park and how to set up, I'm well versed in that, and I've kinda got a feel for the kinda customers that,
Mm.
attend the Bellingham Farmers Market. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting though, not selling the fruit, which is the hot ticket item. Previously I was working markets where like we just had a nonstop line of people and you're just like barely having time to make a transaction and say hello to somebody and then there's somebody waiting in line right behind them and you're
Yeah.
just throwing apples at them like, okay, let's go, I can move the line. I know that it is not going to be like that for, herbal tea. There's gonna
Yeah.
be a lot more of, like, enticing people with a sample or, trying to
It's exactly
explain
what I was
it.
gonna
Yeah.
say.
Uh-huh.
If I've learned anything this year from going from, so last year we were I'm not gonna sound too proud of myself, but I guess I'll say it anyways. I would say we were sort of the premier farm at the market. We generally had the most stuff. I went
Mhm.
really above and beyond to make sure we had a lot of variety and everything was like primo. Like I wanted to be the best farm there. And I feel like we did a good job of being that. But because of where we're at, there's a lot of things that people weren't used to. People didn't know what a Hackeri turnip was. And so it's like, all right. So it was just sheerly out of like needing to educate our customers on what these different things are, started giving out samples and
Mhm.
whatever. And then so moving to this new market this year, I was like, oh no, like these people, like they're old pros, like they know whatever. And I was selling well, I'll just use hack right terms because this is the one that was like the biggest, like obvious shift, and we're selling some and people are like, oh yeah, they're really great. And you talk about it and some people wouldn't know. And then I was like, I should go back to just like putting some on the table, just chopping some up and whatever.
Mhm.
And it was, I think I have to look at the exact numbers, but we had like a 65% increase in sales on
Yeah.
those. And then therefore like a rise in other things because people are like, oh, that's great. So it's
Yeah.
that whole adage of like, let them try it and they'll buy it sort of thing. And nobody
Mhm.
else does it. No other farm gives out samples. No other farm really takes the time to like, try this, try this, try that, try that. And anytime we put stuff out, and I usually do it when it's something that I can't move. It's like, I'm
Yes.
not letting people sample carrots. Like,
Mhm.
no, that's insane.
Right.
But sampling lettuce. But,
Mhm.
if it's Mizuna greens, you let them try it and like, oh, that's so great. And then they buy it. And so, yeah, all the samples that you can give. There's a reason why people love going to Costco,
Yeah,
and it's not just for the
absolutely.
prices. It's so
Well, even when we were selling apples, for the other farm, like, everybody wants a Honeycrisp apple, they're, reliable, they're great, right?
yeah.
But, you get, like, what's a Zestar apple, right? Like,
Mhm.
people aren't necessarily going to try an apple, not everybody. Some people are like, "I want one of each," right? But when you've
Yeah.
got different apple varieties on the table, and some people are unfamiliar with them, and one of them is not moving, yeah, exactly. That's the one that we would say, like, "Okay, let's cut it up, sample it," and then people would request that one by name because you have
Mm.
somebody sampling, like, "This is a Zestar apple, taste it," and then they specifically are gonna go buy that one, so, yeah, highly recommend sampling as a way to move product that's not moving very
Yeah.
well.
And things like tea that they can sort of taste it and immediately know that like, "Oh, yeah, I know what this tastes like, I know what it smells
Yeah,
like." A
and
facial
also
serum,
even
maybe not as much because it's like, "Oh,
right,
I feel
yeah.
so rejuvenated already."
Right.
Like, that's
Though, if you do put out, like, a tester of, like, say you have a cream or something like that, people love to put a little lotion on as they walk by.
yeah,
They love
yeah,
to test it out. People wanna smell it, so, you don't want them to open your tea bags, but you can have a little jar of the dried
yeah,
herbs so that they can smell it, and kinda know what they're getting themselves into. Lots of little tips and tricks, I think, to make things, a little bit more accessible to people. And so that you don't have to explain how it smells a million times. You're just like, "Here, smell it."
yeah, and I guess jumping off of that, what are your plans for the future outside of the market? Like, what are not specifically sales plans, but
Mhm.
just like for the farm in general? Like,
Yeah.
are you hoping to continue to expand? Are you hoping to do more veg? Or, what
Yeah.
what does the future hold for you?
I am interested in doing a little bit more in the veg realm, a little bit more true food items because there is such a need for that, and it's fun, and I love I love eating something that I've grown. I think that, we're gonna cap it at about half an acre for the, vegetable and herb and fruit production, on our farm. However, I could make that half an acre vastly more productive than it is right now. I have a lot of perennial plantings that I just started that are, like, I've got about a quarter acre almost of lavender that is just gonna be coming in, starting to be a little bit more abundant this year. You start with a tiny, like, 4-inch pot, and it takes a little while, a couple years for those perennials to really get up
Yeah,
and going, but
yeah.
once they do, then you've got so much. So,
Uh-huh.
we are looking at yeah, a lot of those perennial plantings are gonna start to come in, and I think, realistically, we'll see what happens when, my husband and I would like to have another kid, and I don't know if I'd have to pause the business a little bit. Juggling a baby and a business is one thing, juggling a toddler and a baby and a business,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
either
lot.
yeah, you need help, so that would either you get to that bridge where you're like, "Okay, do I hire another employee or do I get childcare? Am I making enough money to justify this?" Yeah, so we'll cross that bridge in a couple of years, I think, hopefully. But, otherwise, We might be expanding into livestock a little bit as well. My husband is much more interested in
Mhm.
that side of things. I've got my hands full in many ways right now, but we're thinking since we have a lot of pasture as well, love to get some sheep and integrate that. And we already have chickens, so it'd be nice to really get like the whole complete the food web, have the whole regenerative farm firing on all cylinders there with some ruminants in the pasture would be really cool.
Awesome. I
But,
love it.
we also have to, like, build a house and stuff like
Yeah.
we're still we've got a lot on our plates right now, so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it sounds like you sound like a lot of us. It's like I could
Yeah.
do this, I could do that, I wanna do that. It's like I
Mhm.
can do vegetables, I wanna do herbs, I wanna do animals, and I wanna do flowers,
Mhm.
and we wanna do fruit production. And it's like
Right.
we're doing 3 out of the 4 right now. And the
Mhm.
animal one is like knocking at the door, like, come on. Like
Yep.
you same thing, like we've got pasture and we've got barn
Mhm.
space, and it's like, uh, do I ever wanna leave the farm ever again? Because if I do, then I probably shouldn't do that. But,
Yeah.
it's definitely tempting, and yeah, because you wanna utilize the space, and you wanna and I think at the end of the day, all of us, we wanna feed people, we wanna nourish people, we
Mhm.
wanna help people heal. That's why
Right.
we're doing this. And so I think there is this innate instinctual thing inside of us that it's like, if there's another aspect of agriculture that we're not doing, those things are sort of deeply calling to us.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just a matter of like how restrained are we? Like, are you
Right.
fine with just
Well, like,
doing
maybe you
veg?
don't make it,
Yeah,
like, the business, maybe
yeah.
you're just like, your business is like, for me, maybe my business is just the herbs, but for fun, we have sheep,
Oh yeah.
like
See, that's my
yeah.
problem. My problem. I have enough of the entrepreneurial bent in me that it's like if I'm doing it, it's gonna make money. Like I'm not.
Right.
I don't do anything for fun other than like hang out with my friends. And if I could figure out how to monetize that, then I would.
Yeah.
And so. So yeah, good for you for wanting to just do things for fun. That's probably way
Well,
better for your
I
mental
mean,
health.
look, with their chickens, for example, right? Like, we sell our eggs to the friends,
Yeah.
like, it's paying for the cost of the chicken feed. We're not
That's
making money on our
perfect.
egg
That's perfect.
venture, but
Yeah.
that's kind of like that's where I like it right now. Like, I'm not advertising this. I got a small flock, feeds us, feeds our friends, and it pays for itself. That's great.
Yeah, that's
Um,
perfect.
yeah. Those ventures are nice. It can get a little bit out of hand when you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna have a business and it's gonna have 8 different branches," and
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, and one final question, and obviously you're kind of in the herb space, so you might have unique answers to this. But one question that I ask all of our growers is, if you had a farm Mount Rushmore, who would be the 4 people on your farm Mount Rushmore?
Oh gosh, that's really tough.
There's no wrong answers.
I don't know, actually, do you have a different question we could go for? Because I'm not sure that I can,
I like to spring it on people at the end, and some people I've had some people. One girl like put me on the list. I was like, "Whoa!" Like, no, 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 no. That's not how this works. And somebody else was like, basically, was like, "It's my grandfather, and that's it," because I don't like anybody else who's like hawking their own stuff. I'm like, okay, but all right, but yeah, we'll edit that out. But
yeah, I mean, I
right,
think it's a little hard to I think we often put people on a pedestal,
yeah,
and there's some people that are truly doing it and doing such an amazing job, but, like, really, there's so many, like, unsung heroes as well, and we're all just
yeah,
trying to figure it out.
yeah,
S
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. All right. Well, Emily, thank you so much for sitting down with us today, and thank you, Oren, for making your his appearance and giving us our
Well,
first live burp on
yes.
air. So,
He finally fell asleep right at the end
of
now.
course, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, naturally. But yeah, I wish you the best this year on your farmers market and with motherhood and building your business. You are brave and you're strong, and it's not an easy feat to do any of those things on their own, and you're doing all of them together. So bravo to you, and I wish you the best. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for hosting. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you, and, yeah, I love listening to your podcast while I'm out here by myself with the baby. Not a lot of adult voices going on in the field, so it's nice to hear. It always sounds like I'm listening to some friends chat, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We have another amazing episode in the books. Thank you so much to Emily and to Oren for sitting down and talking with us. He is just the cutest kid in the world. If you don't watch the YouTube version of this and you just listen to it on a podcast app, take a second and go to YouTube and go see how cute that little baby is. He's absolutely adorable. And sometimes it was a little distracting. I'm trying to listen to her and just seeing this cute chubby baby on the screen. But Emily, I absolutely wish you the best and hope that you have an amazing season and you can continue to grow your business and grow your family and be successful with everything that you do. And I hope that you, the listener, can also be successful in everything that you can do. And one way that you can do that is by supporting Modern Grower. Modern Grower is a company that gives you the best curated list of tools and soft goods and kit that you need as a small scale market gardener. And they have made me a better grower. Things like pre-cut landscape fabric, shade cloth, the Jang cedar, and all of the various things, and the Sumi soaker, and things that I have gotten from Modern Grower that have really improved my game, made me a much more efficient, much more profitable farmer and business owner. And I know they'll do the same for you. So go and check out all of the amazing stuff over at Modern Grower. Go to shop.moderngrower.com and go check it out. Speaking of Modern Grower, huge thanks to Diego and the whole team over there for making this show possible. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you for giving us all these episodes in the book, and I look forward to doing so much more thanks to that amazing team. And this is just a reminder that we believe in value for value. I say it every single episode, and I don't think I could say it enough. We want to make this show free to every single person who wants to view it or listen to it or read a transcript or catch it on a social media post. We never want to put it behind a paywall. Never want to create premium content that you have to pay for. But that means that we need you to help support what we're doing. And if you find value in this, please consider kicking some of that value back our way in the form of some treasure and a little bit of a monetary donation. You can go to Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, look for @CropCultureFarm, and you can send us $1, send us $5, send us whatever you feel like this is worth on whatever reoccurring basis you feel that it's worth as well. We say this a lot and we don't get a ton of donations, but I'm hoping that by continuing to encourage you guys to help us out, that we can bolster that so that we can pay to increase the productivity of the show, that we can increase the quality of the gear that we're using so that my voice can sound better, so that the camera quality can be better, because you guys deserve to have the best version of this podcast possible, and we want to give it to you. So thank you so much in advance for supporting this show. And that is all for you guys today. I am your host, Alec, and thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Rookie Farmer Podcast. Until next time, blessings and peace.